Hey guys, WikiDoo here with another TF2 video, here to discuss about the recent update TF2 had with the map fixes and balancing of weapons, which I'll personally call the bug and balance update or something. I don't even know if it has an official name to it, but whatever the case, you're probably wanting to know my opinions in regard to the weapon changes, and thusly, I shall share it with you guys. But first, got to explain the background footage. I'm here starting off as the soldier with the original, the newly buffed Conqueror, I'll discuss that later, and that disciplinary action, I believe. And the second loadout that I use is the Calmangler 5000, Battalion's Backup, and the Escape Plan. And then the second clip is going to be the Medic with the Overdose, the newly buffed Quick Fix, fuck yeah! And I think the Amputator for the melee. So like I said, I'm only going to be rounding up the weapon changes here, not going to discuss the maps here. If you're curious about that, you can always take a look at the TF2 Wiki page. So let's go ahead and start looking through the weapons, starting from Scout to Spy. First up on the list is Criticola. What they did now is that they removed the damage taken by mini-crits and instead replaced it with damage taken increased by 25%. What that means is that mini-crits does 35% more damage. So when they worded this like, now damage is taken increased by 25%, it means that this weapon pretty much got a little bit of a buff. So you won't take as much damage as before, so it goes down by 10%. So, hey, can't really complain, although I don't use Criticola that much. But if I was to use it, I would just flank in some sort of way and not really charge head-on with the dang thing, because Scout's pretty vulnerable anyway. Next up is the primary that I don't use all that much, but I'm probably going to try it out for some sort of hilarious little experiment of sorts with the shortstop. So in a way, I think the shortstop inherited the special delivery set in some sort of a way. 20% bonus healing when deployed. What that means is that you're getting more health from various sources such as health packs, dispensers, and medics, but with dispensers and medics, you're going to get an increased healing rate from those sources, and having that paired up with the quick fix, you can pretty much imagine that there's going to be a very odd tank capabilities with this thing. Not really much so. I mean, you're pretty much capable of being destroyed by some sort of burst damage like crit rockets or something, but nonetheless, it's kind of an interesting thing to experiment. Although the downside, and this is kind of a hilarious downside, is that you are more vulnerable to a lot of push forces, which means if you were to get air blasted or hit by an explosive, be expected to hit your head on the skybox because you're going to be flying so high, it makes me want to pee. No, I don't even know why I said that, but pretty much a weird thing to have, but probably having this paired up with the Mad Milk, I'll probably even get more healing out of this. I don't know. It's something I can try out. Next up, the Winger, which I really did not like because of the less clip size and more damage, which pistol is a lot more better in that choice. But what they did now to make the Winger more used for, in terms of utility, is that they increased the jump height when you ever have it active, which is by 25%. So having this paired up with, like, you know, the Atomizer and Force of Nature actually too, you can pretty much be a lot more maneuverable around the map. You know, like try to find some sort of high up place that you couldn't reach normally. Like, you can pretty much just say hi to any kind of like soldiers or demos that are up in high place, and you can go ahead and meet up on top of a roof and have a tea party. I don't know. But yeah, Winger, I'll pretty much only use it for its utility if I ever want to mix things up. And then the last thing in the Scout changes that they did, and this is pretty much applying to every other class that has this, is that item sets, whether it being with or without hats, they removed all of the set bonuses with those things, and instead, especially the ones that have like a hat to them, I guess, now leaves what's called a calling card on your victims, which is that whenever you kill your victim, it leaves like some sort of little gravestone saying that you got killed by this scout with this set or something. I don't know. I never really looked at it. But yeah, I did say that any kind of item sets, whether it being with or without hats, the set bonuses are removed, which, by the way, in the undocumented changes, the Hibernating Bear and the Medieval Medic set bonuses have been removed. which kind of makes me sad since I don't have the +1 to regen health for medic. Sad face. But yeah, you gotta be consistent with their changes, so no more set bonuses here, folks. But getting back on topic, now for the soldier, with the battalion's backup, now when it's active, the sentry damage resistance is now increased by 15% when the banner is active, which is 50% in total now, and now the rage is generated from damage dealt instead of damage received. This is very annoying originally with the battalion's backup having to receive damage in order to increase their rage, which can be very impractical because you can end up dying that way, like purposely getting hit in order to activate this thing. So it's actually a good change because I rather prefer dealing damage rather than receiving damage. Like, you know, I really don't like that originally. But yeah, battalion's backup, I can probably see that being good. I mean, it is a good counter to crits after all, plus having the original damage reduction to begin with. I think 35% I believe overall. I don't know, it can be a fine thing to try out. Next in the lineup is the Conqueror. Its change now is that rage is now generated from only damage dealt, which I believe from the previous patch, rage is generated from both damage done and damage received. I don't know if that's correct, but it was like that in one of the previous patches, but now rage is only generated from damage dealt. And now the new buff added to this, not only do you get health on hit, but you also get a speed boost, which is just pretty much taking the disciplinary action and just whipping on everybody within your radius, and then just go ahead and charging head forward. This I can considerably say to be a very good weapon now. It's pretty much kind of like the buff banner on par now with this, because you can pretty much use this as a way of charging head forward to the last point. With buff banner, you can pretty much say, hey, if you wanted to deal a lot of damage to the enemy team in order to overwhelm them, you can. Or if you want to try to overwhelm them with being able to heal up your teammates but also charge head forward really fast to the last point, then you have the Conqueror for that. That I pretty much say is to be a very viable choice now, and considering the clip that I just showed you, that is pretty much evidence enough. Next up on the changes is the Calmingler 5000, which now is actually a pretty good weapon choice now as well. What they did is reduce the clip size from 5 to 4, remove the damage and slower reload attribute, and adds new particles and sounds to it, which actually kind of resembles like a rocket launcher rather than just some sort of thin laser beam of sorts, which is kind of weird to look at it. I was a little iffy when it first came out, but now with this change here, it can be pretty much equal between like the rocket launcher and this one, because, you know, it's pretty much the same exact thing. Only difference is that you do less damage to buildings, and the right click functionality to like do mini crit on a big laser blast and set enemies on fire, as well as being able to disable sentries with that thing. Then again, you're not going to be able to do random critical hits, as well as you can't be crit boosted. So in the end, rocket launcher is still the better choice, but hey, can't complain about this change. Next one is pretty much going to be something that all of us are going to have to get used to now, because I always keep having that muscle memory to pull out that melee weapon to escape. It's the escape plan, and now whenever you have that out, you're marked for death. So yeah, you're susceptible to mini crits when you have this out. So this is going to be pretty iffy with soldier melee items now, because I'm kind of have a hard time selecting the right kind of melee whenever I'm trying to think what's optimal for each situation. So for the most part, whenever I'm on offense, I'm using disciplinary action now, and on defense, I'm not entirely sure. But yeah, I'm gonna have to be a little bit more careful when using the escape plan now. Liberty Launcher got a change. Now it has all 4 rockets instead of 3, but now it does less damage by 25% less damage, that is. So that's you're basically making the downside practically the same thing as before. You know, having 1 less rocket means that you're doing less damage. So in essence with this one, you're doing less damage anyway. I can't really say much about it. I'm sorry, Liberty Launcher, but if I wanted to do more damage and have a fast thing, I go for the direct shit, as people call it. And that is wrapping up with the Soldier now. Of course, the set with that one has been removed and leaves a calling card on your victims. So now moving on to the Pyro, which only had one item change, and now it's with the Power Jack. Whenever you have this item deployed, you move 15% faster, pretty much the same way like the Heavy with the Gru, but now you take 20% more damage from all sources. This is pretty much inheriting the Gas Jockey set in a way, because originally when you had that set, you had 10% more bullet vulnerability, but now with the Power Jack, it's 20% damage overall from all sources. That can be pretty iffy. I mean, I like the fact that you can have that as a way to be able to get from point A to point B really quick with that Power Jack, but if you're wanting to get to point A point B really quick, you might as well have to wait at the teleporter or something, I don't know. Or just be patient. I really cannot see using that because I want my precious health. I don't want to have damage vulnerability. I gotta be able to survive, man. Demo Man has a couple of item changes now, so let's take a look at the Charge and Targe. Now it has Afterburn immunity. So now, effectively, the Demo Knight is now the anti-pyro. Not only can you have a lot of fire resistance on that shield, but now you have Afterburn immunity, so now Demo Knight can be an effective counter against pyros in sort of a way. And the fact that you have Afterburn immunity, pyro cannot extinguish you. So yeah, I can probably see it as a way of tolerating pyros now. I might even play Demo Man even more, actually. The loose cannon got a little bit of tweaks here. The reduced charge time is now reduced to 1, where originally you had to hold down the bomb a little bit longer in order to time your shots a little bit more effectively, but now it's 1 second, so you can be a little bit more quicker with this. And now the little mechanic that they did is called the double donk, and what that is that if you hit an enemy directly with the bomb and then in a split second it explodes, it does mini crit. And that's kind of confusing on how it does. Again, directly impacting an enemy within half a second before the bomb explosion. And that's what the double donk does. Moving on to the Heavy, the Buffalo Steak Sandwich pretty much got the same treatment as the Criticola, so that means that damage is taken is increased by 25% instead of originally 35%. And then the last thing that they changed is the Doklo's Bar, which is now that the increased health restored per bite from 15 to 25. So I believe that means that whenever you're doing that eating animation, it increases your health to like 100. If you're not at full health, that is. But even with that minor change that the Heavy had with that bar, I'm still not going to consider using it. It's always the Savage that's going to be the superior choice. Now moving on to the Engineer, this here fix with the Gunslinger, it's kind of worth mentioning. It's not really gameplay changing as much, but there was actually a bug in terms of deploying mini sentries, and what the bug was is that whenever you deployed a mini sentry, it started off at full health, and while it's being constructed, if someone was to shoot it, it would still go back up to full health. Now they fixed it so that it won't heal itself during construction. That was some little concern that people were talking about it, but I personally don't mind it really. A couple of tweaks with the Rescue Ranger, which is that weapon that heals buildings from long range. There is now a minor increase of damage per bolt whenever you're dealing damage to people, and now there is increased healing per bolt on your buildings that went from 50 to 75. Honestly, I don't see why I'm not using this weapon a lot actually, because I can actually be I can pretty much be a mobile engineer whenever I'm playing the big sentry engineer, because I really do not want to be turtling behind my sentry a whole lot. So if I was to be patrolling around the area and then someone was picking off my sentry, I could say, oh, poop, shoot my bolt at the sentry and then it heals up. Nothing to worry about. Now the short circuit can be a little bit more viable now, because the change that they did is that whenever you successfully hit a projectile with this weapon, the cost of firing it is down to 18 metal instead of 36. However, if you're shooting it and there is no projectile within its range, it goes to minus 36. I still have yet to find a very good use for that short circuit. It's still very situational, but I do admire that whenever you hit a projectile, it does less metal cost whenever you use it, so good thing for that. The Wrangler now got a couple of changes. The accuracy is now a lot less whenever you're shooting from long range, and the protective shield now fades 1 second after the owning engineer dies. I'm having a hard time perceiving the last tweak, the protective shield fading after 1 second, being either a buff or a nerf. It's either a buff when you want that sentry to regain control really quickly and then be able to shoot everything, or a nerf if people want to be able to shoot that sentry down a lot quicker without that shield being in the way. So I really don't know how to put with that one. So oddly enough, still I don't use the Wrangler all that much, even though being able to shoot from long range is pretty nice. Then again, the accuracy has been reduced because of that, so not really much to say on that one. Crusader's crossbow pretty much only got a little bit of a cosmetic change to it. Now you're actually firing a dart rather than an arrow. Has a little bit of like sort of healing particle effect whenever you're shooting, some sort of trail effect. And the reload animation has been smoothed out a bit. But the next one that I would love to discuss here is the quick fix. God damn it, finally this happened. Now the quick fix can overheal, but not as much as like the usual Medigun or Kritzkrieg or Vaccinator for that matter. Now what they added in is a 50% overheal, and that 50% is referencing to the amount of health that you overheal originally. Like if you were to overheal a soldier, it goes up to 300, so a 100 increase. So 50% overheal, which means now it's only going to heal up to 50 health for the soldier, so 250. To be honest, this here was the buff that I exactly wanted. Well, exactly what I wanted the second time I thought about it. The first thing I was thinking of was to change up the Uber effect, which is not only are you rapidly healing someone, but they also get an overheal of a certain percentage whenever that Uber is active and you're healing someone. But instead, my second thought was, you know, if they were to add an overheal, it should be like a certain percentage compared to a regular one. And they did that, and my god, I'm so happy they did that. Now quick fix is now a viable choice to go for. I mean, I love the fact that I'm able to heal people really quickly. I mean, I like that concept of healing quickly a lot more over than the regular Medigun. But still, normal Medigun is still the definitive choice because invulnerability Uber, man, you just gotta go for that. But still, quick fix is still a very good viable choice, and you can actually save yourself with the quick fix even if you're not latched onto a patient, because normally if you're not latched onto a patient and you have that Uber active, it does nothing to you. You have to be latched onto a patient in order to rapidly heal yourself, but now they change it so you can actually heal yourself when you're alone. So thank God there's that one too. And now there has been a fix with the Vaccinator, thank God for this one too, is that the Uber now fully absorbs the crit damage for that selected damage type. However, it depletes the Uber charge based upon the amount of damage prevented. And this was quite the annoying bug before, because whenever, say a crit rocket is coming at you and you do have explosion resistance selected and you have that Uber deployed, guess what happens? You get hit by the full crit damage. Instead, what they reduced was the original base damage and not the crit damage. So now they have changed it up, so now the crit damage is actually reduced properly now. The Sniper now got 3 item changes in this one. The Bizarre Bargain now has the starting charge rate being minus 40% instead of 20%, and the capped max charge rate is now at 200%. But even with that sort of a change, I still wouldn't use the Bizarre Bargain anyway. I would still use the default pretty much. The Cozy Camper got a change. Now the movement penalty has been removed, but now damage taken has been increased by 20%. You could see why that's still not a good choice. I mean, the whole point with the Cozy Camper is that whenever you get hit, you don't get flinched. But when you do get hit anyway, you get hit pretty bad. So what's the point of equipping it now? That's sad to say. Now the Darwin's Danger Shield, and I'm willing to bet they're going to change this in the future. just going to let you know, but it apparently inherited the Croco style set bonus by adding bullet resistance by 15% and explosive damage taken is increased by 20%. So still in essence, having that bullet resistance mean that in sniper versus sniper, it can be pretty annoying. Like if you're trying to do a quick headshot, you're not going to die. This really does change up the sniper versus sniper pretty dang much, and if you're the kind of guy that gets annoyed by the sniper versus sniper, you're pretty much going to end up using this. Then again, there is the downside of the explosive damage taken has been increased by 20, but it's implied that you're pretty much staying in the back whenever that happens. Then again, this shield does increase your health by 25, which implies that you're able to go up to the front lines a little bit, but nonetheless, if you do see a majority of the enemy being explosive wielding bastards, then keep your distance with this then. And finally, onto the last class, the Spy, and starting off with the big item change that when it was announced on the blog, people were flipping their load with this kind of a change. Now, actually telling spies to actually switch to the Invisible Watch a lot more. So whenever you are cloaked with the Dead Ringer, if you are taking damage, your cloak time is going to be decreased. That means now if the pyro is chasing you, he's going to be able to kill you a lot quicker in comparison to what the Dead Ringer was before. And with this change here, it's pretty much going to discourage people to playing Spy a lot more, considering the fact that they use that Dead Ringer as a crutch, being able to survive like certain choke points and actually get behind them and survive like certain crap. And instead now they have to fully utilize the whole idea of actually using stealth. So in using stealth with the Dead Ringer, you're going to actually have to be able to sidestep damage so that you'll be able to effectively use your cloak time. So that was definitely a good choice. On a personal note, I don't even use the Dead Ringer a whole lot anyways because I still feel very cringy whenever I decloak, because I still think that people are going to hear me even when I'm behind a rock or underwater. I don't even know. I'm just very, I don't know. I feel very paranoid and I just assume that players have very sensitive ears. The L'Étranger, if that's how you pronounce it, now has an added perk to it and increases cloak duration by 40%. Holy crap, this is actually a pretty good primary now. I mean, most of the time I'm either using the Revolver or Ambassador like a bunch of other spies, but now the L'Étranger means now that I can pretty much be a bit more of a careful spy now, because that's adding like, I believe for the invisibility watch it adds like 4 more seconds to your cloak, and seconds is pretty precious in this game, so having that is very good. Although the damage penalty of course has to be taken to note with this. Then again, if you land your hits you get cloak back, so hey, there's something for it. So that can be pretty good of a primary. I'll have to try it out. Phew. And I do so believe that's all of the weapon changes that are worth noting. There might have been some weapons that I've purposely left out, which they only mentioned like some sort of exploit fixed or some sort of sound fixes. But other than that, that is all the weapon changes listed in this update. Now, do I think that this is a very effective update? I most certainly say yes. And no, not just because of the quick fix buff, but now a lot more weapons have been changed, so that's actually a lot more balanced. I mean, effectively, the escape plan has been nerfed. That's one thing that I could say that's understandable why they have that. Though to be fair, I wish certain weapons got some sort of changes. For example, like the Sydney Sleeper. I don't know, at least to some extent, make the Sydney Sleeper not a body shot encouraging weapon. That's all I'm saying. And I'm guessing like another change would have to be something like one of the primary weapons for the heavy, perhaps, like the Brass Beast or Tomislav, or I don't know, like make it so that the heavy doesn't always stick with the minigun as the most effective weapon out of the bunch. But other than that, all these weapon changes that they did, I, for the most part, do definitely approve of them. I mean, come on. I definitely approve of the quick fix. I mean, thank you very much. You made me a happy wiki. A very happy wiki. Thank you very much for listening to my opinions about this update, and I'll see you guys next time. Take care, everyone.